Okay. Hello, everyone. Today, the story I am telling is Jam Jam's Adventures in One. So, I'm once upon a time, there was a little girl named Jam Jam, and she met and she met a giant magic thumb. And then the giant magic thumb said, "Welcome to Wonderland." And then the giant magic thumb led her into a forest where everything was glowing and there were magical crystals everywhere. So she went in the forest. And then the next thing she found was a flock of giant butterflies. The flock of giant butterflies said, "Hello, Jam Jam." And then Jam Jam said, "You know my name?" And then the butterfly said, "Yes, we know everything." And then Jam Jam got one big butterfly. It was the queen. And then the queen said, "Oh, hello." And then Jam had a tea party with the butterflies. The butterflies collected some nectar from the flowers. And then for Jam Jam, she ate some special bread. And then the syrup was made out of crystals, melted edible crystals. And then Jam Jam set off on her journey. And then the next thing Jam Jam did was turn into a cat. And then Jam Jam met some more cats. And those cats were named Meowser and Tunati. And then she said, "Oh, hello, cats. My name is Jack." And then the cats said, "Oh, hello. My name is Tunati." And then the other cat said, "My name is Meowser." And then the Meowser said, "Let us read a book." But when the Meowser opened the book, it sucked the Jam Jam in. She became normal again. And then the book led her to a well. The well had nice water to drink, and it had some grass. But do you know what? It was a world of pillows because everything was made out of pillows. And then the path was made out of cotton. And then Jam on her next step when the page was flipped. She arrived in the world of shiny things. There were so many crystals. Everything was made out of crystals, even the pillows. And then she met some crystal people, which were also made out of crystals. And then the house was made out of crystals. She stayed there, and then she set off on her journey. And then she went out of the book. And then when she got out of Kitty World, she got to Giant. She became big as the mountains, and she could even touch a cloud. And the houses were super big. Even the food was ginormous. So she shrunk down to a very tiny height. And then she found out she was stuck in Ant World. And then she went into the ants' house. It was dusty, but she cleaned it. The ants were so surprised, even surprised when they saw Alice. They welcomed her. And then after she stayed there for a while, she set off on her next journey. What would it be? What would it look like? Let's find out. It was a world of crochet. And then the people were all crocheting. That's the only thing they did when they didn't have lunch, dinner, or breakfast. And also when they didn't have a crochet music class. They had crochet instruments. Everything was covered in crochet. And then the next thing that Alice found out was that they were crocheting her some boots and some headbands and a crochet dress. And they put it on her. And then she looked like a crochet little girl. But when she found out she was back at the her normal way, she found out she was in Storyland again. And then she found out she was flipped to the next page. And then she found out that the book was closed. But before it would even shut, she got out again. And then she ran away. And then she stopped by in the world of elephants. And she turned into the princess of elephants. She had an elephant crown. She had an elephant teapot. and an elephant teacup, and everything was elephant themed. And she found out that she was now at the top of Elephant City. And then on her next step, on her next step, she arrived to the Elephant Museum, and everything she saw was elephant treasures. And then, when she stepped out and ran away, she found out she was in her own little corner again. The end. Dun, 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 dun. Bye bye.